But yeah, really excited for this last conversation between Kudi, Rachel Jones, Peju Oshin, and Olu Ogunnaike. Peju, I'll let you take it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Oh, I like that. I don't have to do it again. Well, welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this afternoon in this really remarkable space that is the Serpentine Pavilion. So, in thinking about the City of London, I feel like the Serpentine Pavilion really reflects that, in thinking about the fact that it is a fusion of ideas, culture, and also architectural brilliance. So for me, it's a true testament to the vibrancy that defines our city. So London is so much more than just the backdrop. It's a living, breathing entity that pulses with creativity. So from the music, the performances, the writing, and also the provocative art in our galleries and institutions. And in thinking about that, I feel like London is a canvas that continually inspires. So this afternoon, we're here to delve into this incredible city and thinking about the language of artistic practice for those who call it home. I'm honoured to be joined by three exceptional artists. So here we have Rachel Jones, who's known for her vivid expressions of identity and emotion, Kudi, whose dynamic creations challenge and inspire, and Olu Ogunnaike, who transforms materials and profound narratives. So thank you all for being here, and we're going to start our conversation. So I wanted to open up in asking about the unique relationship that each of you have with London. So can you share a little bit about how London has influenced your artistic journey?
I think London is really a mix and blend. I think that's the beauty about it. I think the intersection of different communities, because I'm from North London, I think it's something, if you use your eyes to look anyway, it's something that's super valuable. In the North, there's a large Turkish community, there's a large Nigerian community, Polish, Albanian, and I think I like the way there's ability to mix, which is what gentrification is ruining, right? It's ruining that ability for those people to mix, to be in certain spaces or third spaces, which allow them to learn off one another, which for us during a period like post-riot 2011 was super valuable, right? Because it inspired our work and inspired what we wanted to talk about and who we were as a people. So I think that was London before. Now I think it's whack. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit, innit? A little bit.
Oh.
These are strong statements which are being made right now.
I mean, I love London. But you know, it grates and grinds. And,
Trust me.
But that's part of the magic, I think. It's home for a lot of us, for most of us. But more than anything, I think a city like that, it changes, and we know as Londoners, or as wherever we're from, if you spend an amount of time here, it's constant. That changes, forever churning, right? But being able to call it home and know that you can have friends and family disappear, come back, and even though it's changed, it's still kind of the same, is magic in terms of making, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Essex, so close enough to London, but not of it. And it was like a very distinct thing to be like, you were from London, and you couldn't say it unless you had a certain postcode. So I always felt very...
Freudian.
See, look.
I mean, I know it well, so yeah.
I felt like, a bit of an outsider, and it was actually really exciting to come into the city and to see things. And there was a huge hunger I had for what was available here, and no one really, so when I was growing up, was interested in the things I was interested in. So I felt like I had the journey of self-discovery by myself that really defined how I look at things now, and like the curiosity that I have and how it was fed here. So yeah.
I'm going to say I'm from South London. I love it. My people always here. They're always here. Ollie, you didn't share what part of London you hail from.
I'm all the way South London.
Yes.
Born. Well, so
Wait,
it's
is
a
there a
but
but?
because it's London, and if you're a Londoner, it's all yours. Take it, experience.
Love that.
Love it.
You know. But yeah, the whole of South, from southwest to southeast, then to like Wimbledon anyway, which is kind of questionable, but still. Then back to like Peckham where my studio is now. So yeah.
I'm South East now and I love it.
See,
I represent East London, South East London, 100%. Yeah.
I love this. I love this. I feel like there were some interesting points in all of the things that you raised, but what I kind of wanted to circle back to is the point that you made, Kudi, that there was this really rich and vibrant atmosphere, and right now it feels a little bit dead. And I feel, just being honest, I think that's something that I've also been feeling in the past 18 to 24 months, that in terms of artistic production, there hasn't been too much which has felt exciting for a lot of people. But I suppose I want to look back at some of those early influences and thinking about what feels different from then to this current moment of cultural production for you all.
Yeah, I suppose what ended up happening to London was that I think because of the internet, this is my opinion, I think we lost what it meant to be from the city and what being from the UK actually was and other regions. And I think actually some parts of like Northern England do it exceptionally well, and some native Londoners do it exceptionally well as well. But I think generally what's happened is we've become like an American pseudo version, right? Like we've adopted that aspect of social media, capitalism. You know, everyone's like saying y'all, and it's like we don't speak like that. We had our own slangs, like our own slangs are kind of getting thrown to the side, and we're adopting Americanism because of capitalism, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
I always saw that coming though.
Yeah,
From early.
that way.
Saw it coming.
Yeah.
From music, from food, from culture. There's always this trickle down from once big brother to now little brother to now what are we, being a UK American dynamic. It's always, yeah.
I think it's even happening though, like in terms of like black culture though being now mainstream. I'm like, what? Because there's a loss of recognition of like what is now ordinary for all people and like where it comes from. And I actually find it very problematic because the thing is with the internet, like people who are growing up with that as their norm, they don't have the reference point. Like it's just like the thing itself is everything. And so the context, like that's taken out of it. And so everything is just flattened and like it's done in service of capitalism, really. So the idea that we're leaning into a more global, equal, I don't know, like diverse society, it's like in some ways, yes, but like the reality of what that means for the people who aren't benefiting and who are being like extracted from, it's like that's not being looked at or discussed enough, so.
And considering that flattening that you've mentioned and the ways in which you all produce art, how do you find some of those interactions with, be it galleries or institutions or kind of audiences who are coming across your work in thinking about those references or the way in which your work is spoken about or described going forward?
I have different ways about approaching identity and art, and we all have different paths to follow. But something that's very much mine, I don't feel enforced to share it with the people that won't understand it or feel it. So a lot of the stuff I do is coded. A lot of the stuff kind of goes through my own language or set of tools so that if you see it, you can recognize it. If you can't see it, then hopefully you can learn about it through life, you know? But it's not for me to say like, hey, take this thing that's mine, take it. Be part of me. It's like, this is not the London way, as we could say.
I think you said the PG way, but it's almost like as a black artist, I'm not your token, and you're not going to use me for a period.
But more so, to be blunt, I didn't have cultural attachment to the work that I saw when I was younger. If I saw something amazing, it was amazing, point blank.
Boom.
Be it in the house or be it in a museum. Be it my mum's like and her homies 2 pieces, or my mums and my aunties like, you know, get ups when they go now, or someone who is like, I don't know, just esteemed in community or someone that I love, compared to seeing, my friend draw a watercolor or a Van Gogh, you know.
Not the
OG, the OG of all time. The thing is with what you're saying though is like, that is to do with like the problem of race. Like you become aware of that problem when it's in opposition and it's like really enforced upon you for you to understand and notice the work you have to do in order to be understood.
Yeah.
You know, like
The hard bit is knowing that translates not only in the steps you make daily, but in the institutions. It's everywhere. From the mixing of like primary schools and seeing different people, different walks of life, being a Londoner, we're kind of acclimatized to that anyway, right? So you take that kind of like wherewithal and standing and say like, hey, hold on, I know how to move in this terrain. But I know what's mine in this type of production, or I know what I'm making. So I want to hold on to what's mine and choose how I share.
And because you know the people that, you know, are interested will also be able to connect to it without an in-depth explanation about what the thing is. And the reality is what everyone has their own experience when they come to things as well. So it's about encouraging that openness. And yes, there's a specificity to everything that is made, but there's also an opportunity for there to be things that don't like originate from like a really like strong message. Like there should be like a big amount of room for someone to just enter into the work and come with their own life and knowledge, whatever that may be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And something you said earlier on is sticking with me, that idea of when you're a Londoner, you just take it all. And I kind of like that. And so I maybe want to ask you all, in thinking about what makes the landscape of London unique, separate from the Americanisms which we feel like we might be adopting at the moment, what do you think really contributes to the kind of visual language of the city?
It was very cold this morning, and now it's sunny. So that's for me. That's part of it. I was in bed freezing last night, and it's like, wait, hold on, got to put on the heater before I go to sleep, and then wake up. And it's like, is it going to rain today? This is part of the for my version. This is the part of London, you know. And so acclimatizing, I think, is my way to say that eloquently. Yeah.
I would say nature. Like we have a lot of green spaces. I'm a gardener, and I just...
There's a lot of praise for that.
Woo! Yeah, we're out here. We're outside. Yes, it's so cool to garden and love the planet and the earth. And I don't know, man. Like I just think when you go to cities like New York, you really come back to London and notice the generosity of green space that is here, and that is really important in terms of what it does for you mentally, spiritually, culturally, like gathering in communities outside and just experiencing the city in a way where culture doesn't take precedence over everything. Like there has to be a balance and like a holistic understanding of what London has to offer. So I think our nature is unprecedented for a city.
What do I love? I think for me... No, I do love... I think for me it's like simple stuff like the sarcasm, you know, a little hint of the passive aggression now and again, like, because we all do it, whether we laugh or not, we all do it, right? Like I said before, the intersection of different communities and cultures. And I can't lie, now more than before, I think I'm not just London fixed here, but I'm liking the regionality of the UK. I appreciate the way people from Brum move, right? Like some people, like I'd say, like some to Londoners they'd seem like direct or fast, like more Americans, but that they move a certain way, and I love that. You get to Manchester, they're much like nicer, very northern, like Yorkshire, lovely. Would you like a cake? Da, 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 da. So I'm liking the intersection of all these different regions, and I think, not to tangent here, but I think there's actually something bad that we have in London where we focus too much on the city, and we don't realise so many people have migrated to the city, so we need to understand outside the city. To
Shout out the first generationals.
Don't know.
Everyone's what, second gen? So I'm a first. I was born here, and so I'm a Londoner. My parents are Londoners.
This is classic London behaviour, bragging about being born.
No, but I mean,
literally.
Sorry. Excuse the term Londoners, and just take that as a catchment for the UK.
Awkward.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Cheers, Cobb.
Silence in the audience.
No, but there's definitely this version of being present in this city and any city in this UK, in this kind of island, allows you to kind of have a wherewithal and an understanding of previous histories and the very much a present, right? And being someone who's like split between a West African and Nigerian culture and understanding culture on the ground where I am as opposed to where I'm in my house, you know? So the inside and outside of it all is interesting. And that goes for any city regardless, you know? So this kind of thing of me saying first generation, it means something because I'm still trying to figure out what it means to walk on these streets and just exist and make art, you know?
I think that's a really important point to bring up because we can't talk about London without talking about multiculturalism. I think it's hugely important. And in thinking about that, we as a people who exist in London have had a really huge impact on the cultural production here. So if you think about the various kind of artistic disciplines, there are lots of these subgenres which have emerged and have become really hugely popular because of the people and the unique makeup of this city. So in thinking about that and the breadth of artistic practice, I'm wondering how for all of you, you take, for example, music or performance, writing and embed those into your practices as well to make it more expansive and, I suppose, truer to what you're trying to communicate to the world.
I think it's just real life, not to like, don't want to add no like art long spiel to it. I think it's the understanding of yourself and what you do in your life and what you enjoy reading. I think there's this misconception of the artist archetype that you need to be like some deep, knowledgeable, like, oh, I was by the lake and the sun hit me. But if you live in Peckham or Tottenham, that's not the reality. You're like, you know, you'll bust down to the yard shop, you'll get a jerk, you might play some music, you go see your brethren. So I think it's the self-awareness of knowing who am I as an individual. Like you said, you lived in Essex and you had to understand a new version of yourself coming to London, right? A iOS upgrade, if you will. It's like, you know... No, you didn't. No, yourself.
No hate to Essex, please, over here.
No, never.
No,
never that.
Never that.
Love that place. But no, it's like, no, it's just the internalization of maturing, of evolving and growing. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Oh, very true. I think where was it? We was at Making Room. Our friends put on this thing last week, which was pretty special. I hope some people went, but we were outside Making Room after Buffett did a talk, which was magical. And you was talking about Kudi starting Slade and going through the motions, right? We were talking about crits, which Rachel and I very much know. It's just like everything is loaded to some extent when you step into institutional spaces. But I remember saying, or we were joking about the pain in strokes. And like, I want to be able to see that one brush stroke, maybe not understand your long day or your tiredness, but I can feel something in that weight of this gesture, of this movement, you know? In the same way of conversations with friends and loved ones, how it all seeps into whatever we're doing. The fact that we're cultural producers is one thing, but that happens for everyone, right? Everything kind of channels into whatever we're doing. So I think it's just a good thing that we're able to leave these things behind that kind of signify this for other people to see as well. So grateful for that, yeah.
And I think it's also important to think about the things that you loved when you were young, because so often they're really what the foundation of your practice is about, or like the things you were trying to understand or experience. And so I have more confidence now through like the practice of failing quite a lot, realizing that the things that I'm seeking, like there's a variety or like a richness that I'm trying to experience in the process of making, and like part of that is trying and therefore failing, but then learning more about myself and drawing on the things that I thought I couldn't touch, but actually I can, because, you know, like they're inherent to who I am and like what I find pleasure in and what I find interesting. So stuff that I felt like was just for when I was a kid, like I don't create this separation anymore. So I talk much more about the influence of like cartoons in my practice, and like I directly reference them in a way that I never used to. Or I went to music school for 10 years as a kid, and I played like violin and piano every Saturday, and it's like I made an opera last year. You know, it's just like understanding there's like a trajectory often to where you get to as an adult that originates in who you were when you were growing up, and being proud of that and giving yourself the space to experience that without a sense of like having to compartmentalize and like separate parts of yourself.
I love that. I keep finding out that people went to Saturday music school.
Oh my God, it's everything. It was everything. Life-changing. Yeah.
I played the flute. Let's start a band.
Truly. No, truly. It was amazing. Love it. It made me love classical music.
Truly.
Ride or die.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
Wait, do you have an instrument that you play also?
I used to play the violin, so yeah. But
Shout out violin crew.
Come on.
Yes.
And you?
Flute.
Oh, I said
nice.
two flutists.
Yeah, man. I was one of the three wise men on the flute.
Nice.
Wow.
2 flutes, 2 violins.
This is crazy.
I don't know about me.
Guys, you might be witnessing the inception of something right now.
Definitely not. No.
Supergroup.
It's reminiscing.
But yeah, Rachel, you talked a little bit about some of those early influences, such as cartoons, which are now directly referenced within your practice. I suppose I'm also interested to know from you two as well if there are other things, particularly maybe across music or film or television, which are also referenced within your work now, or stuff that you take influence from.
People is the most important thing, I guess, to me. Like the people I spend time with is one thing, but spending a lot of time watching films, spending a lot of time looking at photographs has kind of invaded the way I see an image to some extent, or how I crop an image. I take thousands of photos constantly, but what becomes artwork is the attachment to a moment with loved ones or a specific feeling or mood. But how I kind of put that through my process of editing is definitely influenced by all the things I've seen growing up that I hold on to, the kind of hazy films, the kind of weird disruption, the kind of cartoon banter or sarcasm. There's little bits, and I don't know how to kind of describe it as a whole, but it genuinely all seeps in there. Yeah.
And I only realised this on Monday, really. My practice is people, and then I think, because of my psychology background, like morality in relation to people, like how we treat one another, how racial groups, socioeconomic groups are treated. And yeah, that's just to put it quite plainly, and trauma a little bit. It's taken me a while to be comfortable to make work about, you grow up in a West African, very Christian home, your mum whoops your ass, but then white kids don't get their ass whooped, and you have like this confliction at school, and then you go into other spaces. So I think as of recent, I'm becoming more acceptance to also speak about that, right? Speak about the things that I assessed in my childhood or family dynamics that were just the truth of how I grew up. So those are the 3 touch points.
Thank you for sharing. And I suppose you've all kind of touched on people as being important aspects of your practice. So in thinking about that, how does collaboration play a role in the work that you do?
It's everything.
Everything.
Yeah, it's so good. I predominantly painted until last year, and so I'm very comfortable with being alone and working in a very isolated way. But my love of music helped me understand that a huge part of me wanted to be with other people and make stuff. And playing in orchestras as a child, that was my first creative communal experience outside of church. So I think that led me to deciding, like, I want to make an opera and I want to make it with people. So, like, with a poet and a composer, and that was an opportunity for me to understand, like, the importance for me of, like, forging a new understanding and creating something with others based on a shared language and, like, a building of trust and reciprocity and all of that sort of stuff that you can only experience with others. You can't do that alone. And it's expanding my way of thinking, and it's helped me understand I don't know, like the desire for quite a lot of people to actually experience that, but it can seem like it's inaccessible or it's like too ambitious or like too simple of a thing to ask for. But yeah, it's like really helped me redefine the way I work.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I guess I'm gonna just keep on going back to people and wait, what were the oranges in this question?
Yeah,
Collaboration.
I was
Collaboration.
about to say.
I think I can just take a day as an example of yesterday, right? Where I need to go to certain suppliers or get certain materials, plus be on the phone to friends, have a kind of psychological kind of understanding of self in these moments, know that I'm tired, know that I'm sleep deprived, but still kind of quest and yearn to be like, hey guys, I know you guys are over there somewhere doing something, but I'm doing this thing. I don't know how it immediately translates into kind of group thinking or group dynamics, but being in a lot of spaces with a lot of people often, and my mum started a Nigerian social club when I was a kid, so I've a big community, big community. Delta Unique Sisters, if any of you know, we certified over here. Shout out Kevin.
Hallelujah.
So it was a weird thing between like my mum and 18, 20 of her friends coming over from same time. And it's like, hey, we need to keep this community together, right? So what we do, we meet up the fourth Sunday of every month. These are the things that I don't really understand how much a part they play in terms of like this communal, my yearning for community, or without the buzzword community, but the actual realness of like, I have people around me and they do different things, and I'm so grateful for every single one of those people, is, I guess, what making my chipboard is, my OSB, which is a bunch of strands of woods together that make this one solid, right? From all different places and denominations. So, suppliers, different people, friends and family, the person you can get a smile from, the person you can be like, hey, don't worry, keep on pushing, because we're all going through certain leaps and bounds to achieve our own things or collectively, but knowing that like we're not alone in it is super special. Yeah.
I'm going to rip a quote from Bafik here, direct, and I think we've all touched upon it, but I think the superpower, if you call yourself an artist, practitioner, whatever the F it may be, is that you can speak to anyone, like everyone and anyone. And I think the second to that is the intentionality behind it. Like, you know, I get told off a lot for just speaking to random people by my partner, but I'm very big on like just speaking to randomers and being like, yo, nice jacket, like love that. And then they'll be like, oh, like I served in the war and my wife died. You know, no, you enter interesting sort of tunnels of perspective. And I think that's the actual superpower.
Because I feel like what you're describing and what Ollie said is like is a thing of like curiosity leading you to a place of like connecting to others, and it's a very human thing. And when you get to shape that around making something, it's really, really special. Yeah, even making a conversation, like you know, like it's.
And sometimes you don't even make something. Sometimes it's you. I've had combos with people, and I'm terrible because I don't have a notebook. I go in the notes app and I'm just like, that's funny, that'll make a great title for a painting. Or it's just like, this is a nice quote to remember later. So not everything is of the work. I think everything just adds value to you as a person, and then you add value to the work.
Value as well.
Quote unquote.
There's different types of value, of course, but let's not go into that.
Spiritual.
Emotional,
Absolutely. Communal.
Like money though, don't get twisted.
What about you though? Because you have a role where you work collaboratively with people all the time, i.e. artists.
Yes, that's true.
Don't.
So I suppose for me, it's really similar to what all of you said. Without people, my work does not exist. And it's been really nice listening to all of you talk, because what you just said really resonates with me. I'm one of those people too. I will be out on the street and talk to a random, or people seem to just gravitate towards me on the bus and just start talking to me, and I love it. It's one of my favorite things, because I feel like I always learn something from that person, or I think it's really strange. It's kind of you leave with a piece of that person in that moment, and it really helps in informing and shaping the rest of your worldview. So I really value all of those interactions that I have with people. So for me, again, in thinking about artists that I work with, I love coming to the studio because I really love thinking about the concept of home. And I think home is really important, and I consider the artist studio to be like a second home for you if it isn't in your actual house, but I consider it to be a home space. And so I will often find myself spending 6 or 7 hours there because I want to know everything about you. And so for me, those are, again, the really meaningful discussions and conversations, and I always feel really energized after having had those conversations. So yeah, people make everything for me.
Can I ask you a question? What is like visiting artists and having these conversations taught you about your own practice? Like, how's that helped you? Because obviously you sit on a different spectrum to the three of us. But what has that taught you about your own practice and how you approach it?
Not me being interviewed now. Thank you. I think that's a really lovely question. And I think what it's taught me about my own practice is, again, the fluidity of things. I think often in thinking about cultural production and as a cultural worker, sometimes you can be positioned to be in one particular box. And I think by spending a lot of time with artists, but then also I have a background in architecture, which is really interdisciplinary in that way. So spending time with artists has really allowed me to reconnect with that part of myself, which is that I'm interested in this and this and this, and actually really seeing the bigger picture and how those things are all interconnected and forging some sort of nice way to do it all at the same time.
Amazing. Sorry, I want to cook you with one more question because we're talking about the city. I hate, and it's one for all of us. We've talked about like the cultural aspect of the city. What are your stances as an individual that curates, brings artists together on the economical aspects of being an artist in the city, and more importantly, the decision making that you see when you visit studios, the artist that's in the gallery versus the artist that is commercially viable by themselves versus the purist? Like, what are your thoughts on that? I'm intrigued.
Okay, wow. I can answer that question. It's fine. No, I think it's something that I think about really often. And when I say really often, I mean every day, perhaps every hour. I think it's something which is very real, and I suppose when I meet and speak to artists, my advice to them is to really think about what type of artist you want to be, and in not measuring that up against what you see of artists who are commercially successful, because actually that's not the route for everyone, and that's actually not maybe what you really want to do, but perhaps because you see that so often and because it's in your feeds, you feel like that is what you need to do next. So the starting point is to figure out what type of artist you want to be and what type of work you want to produce. And two, that idea of the artist who maybe sits kind of in the commercial sphere and the artist who might be present in the context of the institution. For me, again, the conversation is thinking about what are the different aspects of your practice. Because I think for everyone, you have a part of your practice which is your passion project, the things that you really love. And those things might still be in a process of cooking and not ready to be shared with the world. And so in the meantime, while you're working on that, you produce the work which is maybe commercially viable, which then funds your work. So it becomes very cyclical in that way, and it enables an artist to feed themselves in all aspects. So I think about it in that way, and that's the advice that I generally give to artists that I meet.
Interesting. Fantastic. Rachel?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like what you said. I knew from a very early stage what sort of practice I wanted to have, but I struggled to have it because I felt like I had to enter the structure that existed, i.e. having gallery representation, and that seems to be the only way to have financial stability. So when I left the RA, I signed with the gallery within a year, even though I didn't really want that. But also I didn't come from a background where anyone in the family made art, knew anything about art. So I was really green and I had to learn everything myself. So I was like, okay, let me make the most of the opportunity that's being handed to me. But while I was there, this desire I had not to be with the gallery, it remained and it never went away. So eventually I got to a point where I was like, I can't ignore this. And I made the decision to leave my gallery, and now I don't have one. And I'm finally entering a space of work in a way that I always wanted to, which is prioritizing the work, the pace that I want to work at, which is a lot more slow. Yes, there is like a commercial aspect to my practice because I make paintings, but that's not all I want to do. I've never also made that many paintings. So it's like having boundaries around the way I work so that I don't lose a sense of self and so that I can grow into the artist that I want to be. Yeah, and I've had support to do that. Like, I lived at home with my mum for 8 years, and my family, like, they're really ride or die, and like basically giving me the confidence to advocate for myself. Because that's the thing, you enter these spaces and you're told in a matter of ways that you should be grateful to be there. So I'm happy that I've been able to really step into the confidence that I sort of had, but I didn't have the means to enact it in the way that I really wanted to. And so I'm finally in a better place with like how I work and how I function as an artist. And so, yeah, it's taken a little while, but...
Beautiful. Olu?
Still figuring it out. Every day, every show. I have a kind of weird institutional kind of history, but also the envy of, if we're going way back, the envy of doing a theoretical course on my BA after doing a business degree, dropping out, working as a graphic designer, quitting that, making a bit of money, going to art school with like the party flyers that I did for friends as a portfolio. That happens, I get into art school and I find myself in Brighton doing a heavily theoretical course, right? It's fine art philosophy, fine art history, and I'm just seeing the painters down the way like, these guys are doing numbers. They're churning out work. That's what I like. I like to see how your hands or your mind makes a thing, or potentially a thing, whatever it needs to be, right? And this idea of like the painter's corridor for me has always been a weird kind of a mantra in terms of producing work. And at the time, doing a BA, you're learning how to think and then producing every offshoot. My course got teased. Everyone used to CFAP. They used to call it, critical fine art practice. They used to call us the CFAPers. Yeah? And I was one of 2 boys in a class of 15. So it was 15 women, and I was obviously the only black guy in like an earshot, eye shot, whatever, you know? But these are kind of things that I've understood for a while. The most important thing was like, I'm learning somewhere, and I'm still going to move how I move in this place. I learned how to think, I push it aside, I got a studio, and it's like, I'm going to learn how to make and do stuff myself, right? So I learned the physical side of pushing out. But this brain is still ticking and questioning every time I make something. And I think that can be a hindrance, but it is also a superpower. So when those kind of conversations come about, and I guess being communal as a person means that like you get into the RA and people are like, oh, you're at the RA. The people that I would see in openings or would see in this place. So the opportunities are kind of like easier to have a conversation with. I don't want to sound too nepotistic about it, but like I already know that I can stand on my feet and out-talk a lot of people about artwork, especially about my work. So if you give me an intro into the room, I'm going to be like, right, here's an opportunity to like have a discourse. And the work is a discourse. More than anything, artwork is a discourse about where we are now and what we're doing. So thankfully, institutions have let me in to speak and say stuff, and I'm still figuring out what I'm saying with every day, so yeah.
Beautiful. We're going to throw it back to you now.
Oh, no, Kudi, yeah.
You answer your own question, young man.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been fantastic. No, I think before I was doing a lot of making how I feel, and then putting that onto canvas. I started off sculpting, and then moved to painting and canvas. Because I'm thinking, because of my psychology background, and I was kind of using that as a principle to assess what it is I was making and understanding facets. And then artist Remy came into my life. Like, she moved into the studio down the road, and then I brought her into my studio to have a crit. I was like, hey, like, this is art. And she was like, no, this is whack. This is illustration. And I was like, ouch. But it's also the reality of what I needed to hear and what I needed to see. And then she made me understand what practice is, what art as a visual language is. And I think this stage of my life that I'm going into is like what you said, Olu, is more the thinking, right? The thinking behind the visual language of art and how I live and what I'm trying to do with paint, especially. And then you said this to me before, but it's also longevity, right? It's also creating a sustainable practice. If a gallery doesn't work for you, don't be at a gallery, because that's not going to give you a sustainable practice. Because that requires a tenacity of being commercial and a setup of a studio practice that you need to be prepared for, right? Because you're a machine. You're part of it. It's like the music industry. You are not the thing. Just because you're on marketing or famous, you're not the thing. You're a product that someone owns, and they give you like money. As horrible as it sounds, they give you money, and you have to produce, and that burns a lot of people out. It fucked the market from 2020 to where we are now, right? And ruined a lot of people's market. So if you can't play that game, don't play it. For me, going to school, I realised I actually would like to go down the educational route. I want to set up like a part of my practice that's commercially viable, which I'm still figuring out with my homie Vincenzo, the bald white guy at the front there. But I love education. I think a goal of mine would be like a director of the RA or Slade, because I think that's actually more impactful. I think that's where you dictate the canon and you navigate the canon and you make space. And art is approaching this interesting place where the kids in the institution are very well thought out and can speak about the work, but not all of them have a relation to real life, or a few of them do, and they don't understand the pockets. And I think that comes from like the lecturers and the directors of merging those two worlds together. So that's, for me, a personal goal that I shifted. Before I wanted to be like, money, let's make money. Choo, 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 sell it. But I like to think. I like to spend time thinking, and that's not going to fulfill me in the long run. I'll get to 40 and be very sad, actually. So, yeah, that's young, yeah?
I love that, and thank you for mentioning education, because I think that's a really important part of art and what we do. And I think you're right. Education has the capacity to, I suppose, respond to those gaps that there are, and thinking about how you do that right from when they're in primary school. I think that's really important. I used to do a lot of education work, and I see the huge difference it makes in people being able to step into a museum when they're 5 or 6, and the long-lasting effect that has. However, I am aware of time. I'm being pressured to wrap up, guys. But this has been a really beautiful conversation. And so I want to thank you all, firstly, for engaging in this conversation with me. And thank you to the audience as well for listening to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.